Hello, people. This is Istanbul. It's a lovely December day. You're at Real Turkey Channel, hosted by Real Attila Yeşilada. I have good news for you. It's a birthday. Turkey's reigning party, AKP, just gave birth to twins. Now we have three Islamist slash conservative slash center-right parties. Mr. Erdogan has competition from his former lieutenants. One of them is former Premier, Mr. Ahmet Davutoğlu, Professor Ahmet Davutoğlu. He is the inventor of the concept of New Ottomanism. It's sort of like the British saying New Colonialism. or I don't know, Americans saying new ways of killing the natives. But he thought it would be a good idea if we remind our former colonies that, hey, we used to be your masters. You know, you owe us something. Let's do more trade. Anyhow, no, he's a nice guy. I mean, this is one of his, works that AKP still emulates, though he kicked the guy out of the party. On Friday, he launched his new party called the Future Party. Next in line is Mr. Ali Babacan, with whom you may be more familiar because he's one of the original founders of AK Party, and he has served in the capacity of Foreign Affairs Minister, but mostly known for his good services as the economy czar, or minister in charge of economic affairs. And he has done a relatively good job in the sense that since he left, things gone for the worse. He too has become extremely unenchanted with the policies of Mr. Erdogan and launching a new party within the 2 weeks. Now, we really need to understand the importance of this mitosis, of this split, and answer several questions. Do these people abandon AKP because of personal reasons, or are they being pushed by certain constituencies? Do they have a chance in politics? How can they upset the fragile balance between the two coalitions competing in Turkish politics, the governing coalition of AKP, MHP, and the opposite coalition of CHP, İYİP, and slew of smaller parties? What is Mr. Erdogan's counter strategy? And at the end, could Davutoğlu and Babacan steal so many votes or congressmen and congresswomen from AKP that Turkey will face early elections again in 2020, which would be devastating for the economy? Davutoğlu and Ali Babacan represent two easily identifiable sub-constituencies in AKP who feel their needs or their demands are no longer represented by Mr. Erdogan. Mr. Davutoğlu appeals to the true conservative, Islamist conservative, who thinks Mr. Erdogan has abandoned the ideals of the Islamist movement, and he has filled the party with rent seekers, those who are after profit, who are only loyal to him, and who know nothing about the rich and venerable Islamic conservative tradition. They are in it just for money. A good portion of the constituency who thinks that AKP ought to return to its factory settings, and Davutoğlu is essentially pushed forward by this constituency. At the other end are the small town merchants, businessmen and women who have prospered under AKP, who have developed export links, who have imported technology, who think that Mr. Erdogan has abandoned the free market principles, that the party and the regime is no longer market friendly, and moreover, these non-ending clashes with the West, usually for extremely flimsy reasons, are bad for business. And these people know Ali Babacan as a capable manager, and they're congregating behind him. So these parties are not artificial parties founded on the charisma of one person, but they represent segments of voters no longer served by Mr. Erdogan. So we shouldn't underestimate them. If any of you follow the Turkish debate, you would hear criticisms like they don't have charisma, they are part of AKP's past crimes. My answer is Do we really need a charismatic leader? Trump is extremely charismatic. Obama wasn't. To me, Obama was a better president. And Turkish people don't question the past of their leaders as long as they perform. Mr. Erdogan was an accessory to the crimes or sins committed by his predecessor, Mr. Professor Erbakan, Necmettin Erbakan. Turkish politicians have a long history and they've served under different masters, and as good soldiers, they obeyed orders. So these things to me are not important. To me, what is important is the policy plank these people are putting forth and the ability of this plank to attract people. So far, we have heard Davutoglu, for instance, he wants a return to the parliamentary system. He wants the Turkish democracy with all of its institutions to be restored, a merit-based society, less pressure on journalists and freedom of thought. He opens the door to Alevis and Kurds. These are all good things. I really don't know what Babacan is going to say, but what I hear is that he's going to emulate former President Özal, who brought together nationalists, liberals, conservatives and seculars, as well as the center left. He wants to have a party of pragmatics who focus on restoration of Turkish institutions, the free market, and Turkish growth potential. How would Mr. Erdogan combat these rivals? So far, he activated his massive propaganda machine, accusing these people of being associated with Fethullah Gülen, accusing them of swindling and using state sources for their own benefit, which is probably not the most productive venue to attack them, because they all know what happened during the AKP administration. I have a very good idea who stole what, if anything is stolen. By the way, both Babacan and Davutoglu command widespread respect among all AKP voters. Even these people don't plan to vote for them and plan to remain loyal to Erdogan. Babacan and Davutoglu are revered figures, and these unfounded attacks below the belt just doesn't increase the prestige of Erdogan. Do these people have any chance of surviving in Turkish politics? Obviously, at this point, you can't ask these people. You can't ask people whether you would vote for these parties, because the parties didn't exist up until a few days ago. But if you ask them whether they're unhappy with Erdogan, for instance, among AKP voters, according to a Metropol poll, 30% of the voters have second thoughts about Erdogan. So that's a good recruitment field for Davutoglu and Babacan. I have checked various surveys which ask the question, if such parties were formed, would you consider voting for them? I think Babacan and Davutoglu could steal at least 5%, maybe 10%. That's combined, the two of them. 5% to 10% from AKP. Given the fact that AKP, MHP garner 52% of the national vote, this 5% would change the balances completely. Some of the pollsters find that Babacan and Davutoglu get their votes from opposition parties. This doesn't make a difference, because Turkey now essentially is a two-party system. If Mr. Babacan gets part of its votes from an opposition party, that doesn't make a difference, because, Babacan's votes are already counted under the opposition roster or tally. But any votes he steals from AKP is a net subtraction from AKP and is added to the opposition bloc. So even a couple of percentage stolen from AKP is likely to deny the ruling coalition the power. Would there be any early elections? A lot of people are talking about it, and the theory being, if Mr. Erdogan thinks he can't bring these people down by subterfuge, negative propaganda, or even legal proceedings, he may resort to a snap election to catch them unawares. But to me, the answer to early elections will be revealed this winter. Presumably, Turkish economy is recovering. If it is, then it's very weak and not felt among the constituency. If Mr. Erdogan can set the economy right and accelerate the pace of growth to say 3, 4, 5%, then he would not call elections. And I don't think there would be any demand in the Grand Assembly to call elections. But if I expect the recovery peters out over the winter months and people start complaining, then he'll be forced to call early elections. And my date would be second half of 2020. And prior to elections, we're going to have a massive spending and populism pork barreling wave, which is going to destroy the Turkish economy. Thank you very much for watching or listening to another broadcast of Real Turkey channel. If you like it, subscribe, share it with friends. It's a good gift, though it won't fit under the Christmas tree for the holiday season. Have a good one.